What's up, everybody? This is the Tied to the Land podcast, where we believe that everybody is tied to the land in some way, shape, or form. On this podcast, we'll explore the intimate connection that people feel with the land beneath their feet, while telling the stories of folks whose lives have been impacted by their roots to the rural lifestyle. This podcast is brought to you by Arrowhead Land Company, where their mission is to create, inspire, or advance a connection to the land in every person throughout the world. What's up, guys? My name's Andrew Schultz, and I'm joined today by somebody very near and dear to me, Matthew Schultz.
How we doing?
Little baby brother, little itsy bitsy tiny little baby brother.
Typical older brother thing to say.
We're gonna have some fun today. We're gonna have some fun. We took a little break. Christmas, New Year's, we're back at it. First podcast of 2024. So it's going to be a fun one. Really excited to talk to you about everything you've had going on in your life, man, and just to share with everybody your journey and what you've had going. I hope you don't disappoint. Make this entertaining. Usually you bring a lot of energy, so don't let that change today for our listeners, all right?
I don't plan on it.
All right, brother. So this is the Tied to the Land podcast, as I always like to say. Tell me about when you first realized that you were tied to the land, and was there any one defining moment for you that comes to mind? Maybe a memory in the outdoors, a particular hunt, somebody influential that introduced you to the outdoors. What was that, and when was that?
Yeah, man, I really don't remember how old I was. It was a long time ago. The friends that you kind of mentioned on a previous episode about going on their 40 acres. I remember I was as young as can be. No one really would let me go on my own, and I would just sit in the basement waiting for everybody to come back and look at their photo album. And I mean, there was just years upon years of memories on that land. And I even started doing that myself and collecting all these photos, making them look vintage, you know. But I mean, as far as I can remember, that's really where it started. It just kind of kept growing from there. You know, we hunted on little acre timber in the backyard of people's houses, you know, just outside of town, growing up in our hometown. And man, that's really where I think it began.
So tell everybody, not everybody knows about where we're from and what the hunting was like. Mm-hmm. I mean, there wasn't big timber and there wasn't just opportunities at every corner. This isn't Pike County, Illinois, where there's lots of leasing opportunities and there's just deer running everywhere. I mean, we had great deer, but what was it like trying to find a spot to hunt?
Oh, man. I mean, the one specific spot I can think about, I could see them working on their horses from the stand. I mean, we were hunting just right outside, right off the road, and there's just a lot of ag ground, not too many big landowners, like you said. And if you're hunting on there, then you're hearing all the commotion, and you know you're really not expecting a big deer to come by. But thankfully enough, given our hometown, Hayworth, Illinois, I mean, there's a lot of big deer running around there, and we've had a couple good ones. But usually just a doe would come by, and we'd be just grateful enough to shoot one. So nothing too exciting, but very grateful for it.
Yeah, man. I think there's a lot of people in the country that can resonate with what you're saying. We watch outdoor television, and you know, fortunately now we've been blessed with some amazing hunting opportunities, but it wasn't always like that, right?
No.
And there's a lot of people who don't have stellar hunting opportunities.
Yeah.
And so if that's you, why are you out there? You know, it's because you love being out on the land. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you probably love hunting, but I'm sure you don't love not seeing anything or not getting opportunities. And so you have one of two choices. You know, you can deal with the cards you're dealt and make the most out of them, I feel like, or you can go seeking other opportunities. And we're going to get into kind of the evolution of your life and how you sought other opportunities. And that's what has us sitting here next to each other today. But so you grew up in Hayworth, Illinois, you said. We grew up in Hayworth, Illinois. You know, if you weren't from a farming family, it was tough to get access.
Yeah.
It was tough. You talked earlier about really looking through photo albums and seeing your elders, or in some cases your brothers, hunting before you, and the memories they made and the pictures that they had. But what was really like that moment where you knew that you were about this too? That moment where you knew like, hey, I'm into this whole outdoors thing.
Yeah, man, like looking through those photos, like you can always sit there and just look through thousands of photos and not really take anything from it. But after looking at them for a while and then experiencing almost like you're in the photo, people are coming back from the stand, someone shot something or they're getting ready that morning and you're there experiencing it and watching it, even though you're not necessarily going out there and hunting, you still feel like you're a part of it. And, you know, everyone comes back, tell them about the hunt. And it's just kind of like the camaraderie that I kind of felt like I was a part of it. And I think that's really what tied me down to it, is sharing those experiences and memories and messing around with each other, whatever it may be.
So for you, you were tied to hunting before you even really went hunting.
Correct.
I mean, I feel like that's what you're trying to say here.
Exactly.
You saw the camaraderie as a young boy. You saw guys hooting and hollering and, you know, bringing in deer with the tractor or whatever it was, and you were immediately drawn to that.
Yeah.
And so that's great. What do you remember from when you first got out and actually started hunting? And did that further cement that was something you wanted to do? Tell us about that.
Well, when I first started, it was not that great. A lot of people going out there for the first time, they probably would have just hung it up and didn't do it again because, like we said, you know, we didn't have anything special to hunt or anything crazy. But for me, I was taught by you and, you know, Dad and the other brothers, and you know, it teaches you to be present in the moment and kind of forces you to work at something that you want and not just to settle. So, I mean, dating all the way back, I remember I'd be ecstatic if I even saw just a yearling. And I was just always taught just to keep working at it. And you may not have the perfect spot at that time, but if you keep, you know, building that knowledge and that experience, it's going to pay off in the long run. And like I said, being present, closer to God there, and it's just a good time.
Yeah, I can remember, maybe I remember this better than you do, but I remember I was with you. I was sitting in the stand when you shot your first deer with a bow and arrow. Do you remember it?
I remember.
Okay. How old were you?
13 or 12, I think.
No, you weren't even that old. I mean, you were probably
Maybe. I don't know.
10.
I was young. I could barely pull the deer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it was yearling. So
Yeah.
I mean,
It was not a big deer
It was
at
not
all.
a big deer. No, I think I drug it out of there with one arm.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. We drug it out of there together. But I remember you shooting that deer, and I think somewhere, I need to dig it up, but there's still a picture of you looking up at me in the top stand like, oh my gosh. And you were shaking and so fired up, man. And like, I'll never, ever forget that moment. And those are the memories that now I catch myself just living for, you know,
Yeah.
and sharing that with somebody you love and somebody you care about. There's nothing better than that. So your hunting started out tougher, right? We talked about where we come from, and there's just not opportunities around every corner and every, you know, country street sign. But now you're killing all kinds of stuff, right? I mean,
I don't want to stop.
you live here in Oklahoma, and I want to talk about that journey and what brought you here. But not that long ago, you got the privilege of going to Alaska and hunting moose.
Yeah.
And so I want you to tell us about what that was like. But to go from very limited hunting opportunities to taking some chances in life and making some opportunities for yourself led you to hunting in Alaska at the age of
22, I think I was.
So
maybe.
A dream hunt that there's grown men and women who go their entire lives hoping and wishing and praying that they could go on a hunt like that. And you get to go do it when you're 22. What was that experience like when you found out that you were going to get to go to Alaska and hunt moose?
I didn't believe it, honestly. I remember it clear as day whenever you guys pretty much presented to me that I was going. I kind of called your bluff on it. I thought you guys were full of crap because just to dream of that, I mean, we all have our dream hunts and the different animals we want to go after, but Alaska wasn't even in my mind. I never even thought of that as an option, let alone an idea. And to go there and experience that, I mean, even though we didn't see anything, it really just kind of does a full circle for you in the outdoors. You know, you kind of start to become more grateful for things that you weren't at one point. And even though we didn't see anything, you're out there, you have the stars above you. It's just, you're just there in the moment, and you can't help but think about that. But it was just a surreal moment. I still can't really believe it.
How long were you there for? Was it like 7 days that you were hunting?
6 or 7 days, give or take. It took a while to get out there just because of the weather. But
so what was going through your head when you weren't getting into any moose? I mean, were you having to battle some demons and some negative thoughts, or were you just positive the whole time? I mean, anybody who knows you knows you're upbeat and you're positive
right.
and you're high energy, but what was it like when you weren't seeing anything and you're in the Alaska wilderness and the nasty weather's beating on you? I mean,
naturally, as human beings, you're going to have some negative thoughts out there, especially in that weather. I mean, it was super. I mean, the sun was shining. We were catching fish when we first got there. I mean, it was just great.
Riding in planes with a mustache?
With the mustache. Had to bring out the mustache for the moose hunt. And
it was mustache moose hunt.
It was. Didn't bring the good luck, though.
Bad luck stash.
Yeah, not good. But, we went from sunny weather to super cloudy to rain for 24 plus hours. Then we wake up, everything's frozen. I mean, the weather is just changing like crazy. And I mean, like I said, you're going to have the negative thoughts. You're not seeing any, but something that I now experience, but was told, I mean, Alaska's a different beast. You have no idea what's out there. You have no idea what can just show up out of the blue. So to say I was negative the whole time, that I would not even come close to that. I mean, I was just always like on edge, wondering if something was going to pop out. But I mean, we made trails, we boated across the lake there. I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah, man, I think, and we talk about hunting and real estate a lot here on this podcast, but I think there's a lot of parallels between just the mental toughness that hunting takes and the mental toughness that being in the real estate business takes.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're presented with new, different challenges every day, and you can either get in your head about it and get down on yourself or get in your feels, or you can take it on the chin and move forward and make something happen. And I think that they're so similar in that regard. And so with that being said, you moved across the country to come to work at Arrowhead Land Company. You had a job that you relatively enjoyed before. You were surrounded by friends that you loved and loved to be around. You were in the not your hometown, but your alma mater's hometown, you know, where you went to college. You were in the same town. I mean, what was it inside of you? What was that driving force or factor, if anything, or just what moved you to take this leap of faith and to step away from a life that you really enjoyed and were super comfortable in order to take advantage of this new opportunity?
Yeah. When I first got the news or the offer, however you want to phrase it, to come down here, initial thought was actually pretty scared and hesitant. Naturally, because I'm going out of my comfort zone. I'm moving multiple states away from friends and just the everyday life that I already know. And the more I thought about it, the more I talked to people where I valued their opinion on it. And it was just kind of like one of those opportunities that you just really don't pass up. And whenever you have something like that, I mean, you can sit back and just not do it and just settle, or you can just go and do it, just jump. And that's really kind of what I came to the conclusion of is, if I don't like it, which is not the case, I absolutely love it, but I can always go back. And I'm so glad I did, because while, like you said, I did love my other job and I had a bunch of friends, I mean, coming down here and experiencing things I'm doing, I wouldn't change it for a bit. I absolutely love it. And I mean, just taking that leap of faith is always worth it.
So I want to get a little deeper into this subject with you, and you don't know that I'm going here, but I've made some moves myself, and you and I have talked obviously a lot since you've been here, and our relationship has grown a lot. But when you make a life move like that, some of your relationships seem to change inevitably. And old friendships can fade.
Yep.
And new friendships and new relationships can blossom, right? What was it like for you enduring some of that for the first time in your life, where some friends kind of fell away from you, or maybe people weren't rooting for you like you thought they were, or maybe they were happy for you, but you couldn't be around them to celebrate the good times anymore? What was that like for you as a young man, making your first real big life decision on your own, and then having to navigate those relationships?
Man, I mean, I actually remember having this conversation with you and a couple other people, though. But whenever I made that move, it really put in perspective on kind of who's in your corner. You know, being there all the time and just going through the same old motions, you know, you think you have some of the best friends out there. But then once you make a life-changing move like that, you really learn who's there. And that it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes. I don't necessarily believe that they're not rooting for me, but definitely not necessarily the caliber of friends that I thought they were. But I mean, to kind of go against that, I learned that there's a lot of people who are rooting for me, and I guess rooting for us really on what we have going here. You really learn who has been watching kind of in the weeds there, and it feels good, but definitely it kind of is like a punch to the gut sometimes when some of those buddies that you think were always going to be there, you talk to every single day, and next thing you know, you're not there with them, and you don't hear as much from them. It changes you a little bit, but it kind of makes you really, really grateful for the people that are around you. And the people I met here, I mean, heck, they're going to be in my wedding. There's no doubt about that, whatever that may be. But
your wedding, just for the record, ladies, Matt is single. So there's no wedding scheduled anytime soon for this guy, but he's a hot commodity. So he's single. Yeah. Just throwing that in there. Shameless plug for the guy.
But I mean, man, the friends here, it's just crazy. I mean, I want all my really good buddies I still talk to back home to meet them. And I mean, I wouldn't change it for a bit. I feel like the guys that I met here, man, I feel like I've known them my whole life. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been great.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I'm a big believer that God puts people in our life at certain times, and then for whatever reason, he removes them from our life. And while that can be painful, you just don't know what's up ahead. You never know what he has in store for you. You never know why people are coming and going in and out of your life. And even though sometimes you're trying to hang on, you're like, man, I love you. Like, stay here with me, be a part of my life. And sometimes you just have no control over that next step or that next chapter, and you just got to roll with it, you know? So I think for anybody listening who's going through a similar situation, or they're about to make a life jump, they're about to move on to the next chapter, you have to understand and be prepared that there's certain people in your life who have been there who are not always going to be there. But I think you can find comfort in looking forward and knowing that you're going to make new, incredible friendships and relationships, and that's all part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
It's all part of the journey. Man, so you play many roles at Arrowhead Land Company. You're heavily involved in essentially overseeing our apprenticeship program. You do a lot on the marketing side of things. You dabble in the sales side of things when we need you to step up. But you've got some great stories just being out in these rural areas and meeting landowners and hanging with agents and, you know, having a beer or two with a man that's 3 times your age, you know. I mean, just tell us, what are some of the cool stories that come to mind since you've been in this role, been in this job at this company?
Yeah, man, I could probably sit here for hours and tell you stories. I mean, one of them, I went down, it was way down south. It was a pretty far drive, and he was an older gentleman, and I got done with their house. I think they lived on about 10 acres, and he he had this garage fridge, and I'm like, I know exactly what's in there. And he's like, I was about to leave, and he's like, man, you know, like, you of age? Like, I don't know how old you are, because, you know, being young in this business, a lot of these older guys really will question your age. And I'm just like, no, I was 22 at the time when that happened, and it was just a fridge full of beer. And he's like, man, no, you worked hard out here. You got to take some of this. I don't drink it no more. And I'm just like, no, man, I really can't. I got like a 3-hour drive. I can't just take these, like, whatever. He goes, no, I'm not asking you to drink them. Just take them. I don't need them. And he would not let me leave that property without some beers. I don't know why, but he just loved it. I mean, we talked, and man, there's another one, which is kind of wild, and it kind of puts in perspective, growing up where I did, and then learning how landowners are down here. Go out on this property. I'm legally there. I'm on a easement walking to the property, and I just hear some screaming and yelling. I'm like, oh, what's going on? And may I remind you, this is my first or second property I'm on by myself, and he comes racing down in his vehicle. I see the wife up there screaming, and he's all angry as can be. And
was the wife screaming at you or screaming at him to stop screaming at you?
No, the wife was definitely screaming at me because she started it while he raced to his truck. And he is just skirting down this hill coming down towards me. And I just stop. I mean, I have my backpack with me. I don't look like I'm causing trouble. He rolls up real quick.
Did you have the mustache at that time?
I didn't. I think that really would have saved me if I did. But he comes up, and he's all hot and heavy, and he's just like, you know, start questioning me. What are you doing here? Why are you here? You ain't supposed to be here. And, you know, I just politely explained to him what I was doing and that I was allowed to be there. And, you know, we get to talking. He's still kind of heated a little bit, and he ends up telling me that, man, that this was 10 years ago. There's some sketchy stuff down here. We got guns. I mean, there's no telling what could have happened to you if, you know, this was a while back. So, yeah, apparently, I mean, he tells me some crazy stories that's happened just next door. And he's like, don't cross that fence. You got to be careful. And we ended up just talking. He's laughing by the end of the conversation, talking about possibly selling his ground, and he knows other neighbors that might sell. And I mean, I exchanged phone numbers. It was a great conversation at the end of it, but in the beginning, he was not too happy.
Yeah, you just never know with people, man. There's a lot of interesting people out there, and we run into a lot of interesting folks being in the rural real estate business, and not that there's anything wrong with them, but they just enjoy a secluded lifestyle, right? And when they see some random dude in a backpack, maybe with or without a mustache, walking down this road, like where they're not used to seeing people, they're going to bristle up a little bit.
Yeah, and when he ended up telling me about, like I said, the crazy stories down there, and I mean, he's really just trying to be protective of his ground. I mean, of his family, really. Yeah. Which I understood, but I'm like, man, I'm not here causing no trouble. I got my backpack, I got my drone with me, but I mean, he was just doing what I really kind of expect anybody to do down this long road. I mean, you really can't get back there without a key. So,
and it's so interesting to me, just the different cultures in our society. Like for us, we feel perfectly comfortable navigating that situation in the middle of the woods with, you know, nobody else there to help you. Like it's cool, but you put me in Chicago in a dark alley and you run into a similar situation, like I ain't about that.
No.
You know, so and the people from Chicago, I'm sure, don't want to be stuck in the woods with some old country boy with a gun, you know? So,
not at all. And it's crazy though, because he ended up proceeding to tell me, you know, and he goes, got to be careful back there. We've lost about 8 dogs to hogs back there, and there's a bunch of snakes, so good luck. I'm like, hope you have a gun. And at the time I did, but he didn't know, or else he probably would have handled it a little more aggressively if I did. But he was like, you just got to be careful back there. Those hogs will eat you alive.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy, man. Yeah. So we've told some stories and talked about your life a little bit. Is there anybody in particular, and this could be multiple people, but anybody influential who, as you found yourself getting more and more into the outdoors and more into hunting, is there anybody that comes to mind? And you don't have to name names, but maybe just talk about how that person played a role in impacting your life. And the reason I'm asking you that is because I think we all have an opportunity to do the same thing for others that was done for us, you know, to help shape our lives. Yeah. And it's important that we give back to the next generation and give back to maybe people who are trying to follow in our footsteps. So I know that's a long-winded question, but is there anybody influential that comes to mind in terms of getting you to where you're at now?
Yeah. Man, I mean, I got to start with, honestly, my entire family, you know, all four brothers, mom and dad, because at one point there was a time where, you know, dad, he's really particular with his things, and he does everything by the book. So he's definitely gave me some appreciation for just doing things the right way.
Dude, I can remember, I'm going to pause you really quick because you talking about dad and just growing up hunting and fishing and stuff. Like, I can remember when I started fishing farm ponds real heavily, and you were there for a lot of those fishing memories. But like, we'd be sneaking crankbaits and sneaking tackle just out of dad's tackle box.
Because he had a big old tackle box.
He had this big old tackle box with a kind of a clearish blue lid. I'll never forget it. And like, you'd be careful not to pick the ones out of the top layer because he could see through.
Yep.
And he'd get ready to go fishing. The next time he'd be like, "Who's taking all my lures?"
We would just blame each other.
Matt,
it wasn't
Jacob,
me.
Kyle.
It wasn't me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would. Gosh, I remember that clear as day. And I mean, he just did everything right, really. And that really taught me to do a lot of the right things. And growing up with you and Jacob, Kyle, and even Zach, even though Zach's not an outdoorsman very much, although he loves fishing, it always he always joked with us about, well, did you guys get anything? And we're like, no. Did you see anything? Nope. Well, why'd you guys even go? And but it was kind of like an opportunity to kind of put you back in those shoes of, like, you know, just loving being out there. Mm-hmm. And so that was always a fun interaction with him. But I mean, each one of you brothers are different. Like Kyle, it's always been turkeys. Jacob, it's been fishing and shed hunting. And with you, it's been honestly just about everything, especially being down here in Oklahoma. But even Mom, I mean, we were all out in the backyard shooting bows one time, and she was out shooting all of us. Yeah. So, I mean, the family's the huge role there. And definitely back in our hometown, I'm going to drop names here, but Alicia Anderson, I mean, she's like our second mom to us, and that was one of the properties that let us hunt and get to see them work their horses. I mean, if it wasn't for that, I really don't know where I would have been hunting most of my childhood. So, yeah, she's been great, and she taught me a lot of hard work, too. I mean, it wasn't just hunting, and I think those two kind of play hand in hand. So, I mean, there's a lot of people out there I could credit, but I mean, gosh, it's just kind of all over the board.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I mean, faith, family, the outdoors, and then, of course, good friends like Alicia. I mean, for everybody listening, Alicia is a super close family friend of ours, and she had a horse farm. It was a handful of acres. It wasn't like a ranch that you think of in Montana or Colorado, but where we come from, you know, hobby farms, I guess you could say. And like, all of our first jobs were working for her on her farm and building fence and, you know, stacking hay and, I mean, just all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And so we were taught the value of hard physical manual labor. Not that that's hard physical manual labor, but it is when you're in 6th grade and getting older and learning about work and money and things like that. And I think we're missing that from our today's society. Like, I think there's probably some kids out there that could really use a little bit of work on a horse farm, that need to learn how to drive a fence post or throw a bale of hay or just little good old fashioned sweat equity. Yeah. You know, I think would go a long way. And I feel like we've lost that. Everybody, I don't know. It's just different times, I guess. So you're younger than me, of course. I'm feeling old as I sit here and try to talk about this, but I feel like you're teetering right on that generational difference of like what I was just describing and then the opposite of what I was just describing. So
no, it couldn't be any more exact. And the thing is, what I've noticed, most, I wouldn't say all, but some of the people that are fortunate to grow up with, the luxury of having that land or having the side-by-sides or, the equipment, whatever it may be, most, not all, tend to just kind of coast through that. And sitting from the outside who, didn't have all that growing up necessarily, it's kind of like, man, you don't seem too grateful for everything you got. Like, you ain't working too hard. If I had that, I'd be out running around doing this, doing that. But there is a little fine line right there as far as what side of the spectrum you're on, in my generation, at least, in my opinion.
That so interesting how people take for granted the things they have, and then there's always someone looking at your life wishing they had a portion of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we're all guilty of that at times,
Yeah.
right? Not just with, outdoor opportunities, but it could be anything.
Sure.
We're always looking over the other side of the fence, I feel like. And meanwhile, there's somebody who would kill to have the life that you have. And man, it's just crazy when you really stop and think about that. And you have to remember to acknowledge how blessed you are.
Yeah. Like, I mean, our parents they did everything for us. They were amazing. And while we didn't necessarily have everything in the book growing up, but I'm glad that that's kind of how it was, because, I always ask myself, if I had 300 acres to run on every single day of my life with all the other equipment, would I be as grateful as I am today?
You'd still be living at home in their basement.
If I got 300 now, but it really puts in perspective. So I'm really glad on how our upbringing was, and can see it from that side of view, or point of view, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you feel like the future is for you? Totally random question, but what do you see in your future in terms of what are some of your goals? You're a 23. Thanks.
23.
You're growing up on me, bud. You're growing up on me. You're a 23-year-old young man with ambitions, but you're also enjoying your life right now for what it is and where you're at. What do you see in your future? I mean, you plan to own land, you plan to have a family. What does that look like?
Yeah, man, hopefully the next place I live, it's on some land. That's a huge goal of mine.
Why?
I think I like the peace and quiet. I like to go home, and if I have some tasks I can do, I don't have to worry about some neighbors' dogs barking or having to drive through town or whatever it may be. I can just go out there and be present into where I'm at. And I think that's something I've really realized about myself in the past year and a half, 2 years, is being present in what I'm doing. And of course, I do want a family at some point in my life, but as long as I can just keep making the memories that I'm doing, hunting with buddies, hunting with family, and excelling in my career, I really can't ask for anything more than that.
Did you see yourself in this career with these opportunities, with just the bright, optimistic future ahead of you that you have? Or was this always your vision, or was it different at some point in time?
It was very, very, very different.
How so?
Coming out of high school, I wanted to go play college football. And I actually wanted to go play for Brother Zach down there in Tennessee. But
so for everybody listening, my twin brother, he is a college football coach, and so that's why Matt's saying he wanted to play for him.
I remember my freshman year of high school, he was actually one of the coaches there, so at Hayworth, and so it kind of, I'm like, I'm going to play for him one day, hopefully. And there was an opportunity at a school that was just too much out of the price range at the time, and I kind of was all into that school and kind of stubborn, and had my blinders on to any other school. And so decided to go to a community college, major in, I don't even remember what it was, maybe business. And first day I was just like, this is a waste. I should be playing a sport, and ended up transferring, kind of took a leap of faith. I've always had a dream of playing Division I football, and went to go walk on at Indiana State. And I've always had this small passion of nursing and being in the medical field. And so I was pursuing a nursing major at the time for that one semester. And well, about a week before spring ball, they decided to cut all the walk-ons, and they weren't going to take us. And at that time, it's like, okay, do I risk till the fall and maybe not be on the team, or do I go probably where I should have went to from the start, which is Illinois College? And, I transferred there the fall of my sophomore year and ended up majoring in agribusiness. And that's where all my hunting journey started. And then COVID kind of happened, which kind of excelled the hunting a little bit. I remember being in class and still kind of going hunting a little bit on Zoom. But, it was very, very different from where I'm at now. I would not have been able to predict it. It's just kind of crazy to stop and think about.
What did you want to do for a career, though? You talked about playing football and, all that stuff, but did you see yourself in the real estate business?
No. Like I said, when I went to Indiana State, I was going into nursing, and I've always have a passion of helping others. And what really interested me, which comes as a shock to some people, is pediatric oncology. I know that there's a lot of lows in that job, but there can also be a lot of highs. Just dreaming of kind of helping the kids that kind of can get better and get healthy. I think that's somewhere I can make an impact. And I just kind of felt myself pulling towards that. And then, some things changed, and I realized that maybe wasn't my primary passion. While I would have loved the job, but maybe it just wasn't for me at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You have a genuine passion for helping others. And I feel like that's a common characteristic with people who find success in the real estate business. And I think that's why you're finding success in the real estate business. And if you genuinely don't care about helping others, or you're trying to put on a show to make money or whatever it might be, you're not going to make it very far in this business. You've got to be a people person. You've got to love helping people, and you've got to be selfless. It's not always about making a dollar. It's about helping people and changing their lives and doing the right thing. And I see you finding fulfillment in that every day, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think that like a lot of that I've reflected on is, if you wake up every day and you have to tell yourself, gosh, I don't want to go do this or go do that, then maybe that might not be for you. The reason why I'm loving everything so much, it don't feel like work. So I was able to find something that doesn't feel like work, and I get to wake up every day and not ever have that negative thought. So just to keep pursuing that has been just a blessing.
And it's not easy work.
No.
You love it, but a lot of times you're out the door of the house by 3:30, 4 in the morning sometimes. And sometimes you're not getting back until the evening. And you're doing that to be present at sunrise and to be present at sunset, but you're going the extra mile, putting in the quality work, and it's paying dividends for you, and it's fun to watch, and it's fun to see you get that fulfillment from a job and a career that you had no idea you would be taking on. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's been, waking up that early, just driving. I'm usually in my own little world. I just blaring music, doesn't matter what genre it is, and just enjoying it and bringing that high energy to, I'll call agents, whatever it may be. And, it's just kind of surreal, honestly, to talk about out loud, really. But it's just been fun.
What's it been like for you working with men and women who are older than you, have more career experience than you, have more life experience than you? Has that been challenging? Has that been fun? Has that been difficult to navigate? What's that like?
It's very interesting depending on who you're talking to, because in this business, and like most other businesses, there's a lot of different personalities. So I've kind of learned how to navigate through each personality, and being my age and then being, quite a bit older than me, whatever that may be. I always just try and bring light to everything, not make it so cut and dry and professional, I guess I should say, because at the end of the day, they want to make sure they can trust you, in my opinion, and that as long as I back up my work, then they can kind of feed into that and enjoy it. It's kind of comes more of like a camaraderie thing, how I see it.
I think that's a good life lesson for people listening. And I have encountered the same situation a lot of times in my career. And at the end of the day, your body of work can always speak for itself, right? Yeah. And so what you just kind of said without saying is that you let your work prove your value, even if somebody's not always listening to you very closely, like, hey, young buck, I don't need lectured by you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I think you letting your work speak for itself is a great thing to point out, because we all have the opportunity to do that. Sometimes it's better to say less and just pour into your craft. And I feel like you've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But spoke up when you needed to in the right situations.
Yeah. And I mean, if they have questions or, comments or suggestions, I don't try and shy them away, because at the end of the day, if I do that, they're going to be like, oh, who's this young, arrogant kid? Like, what does he know? I've been doing this business for 10 plus years, and, just trying to make light of all of that and, really listen to what they have to say. And then, like you said, letting my work show. I mean, that's where I found a lot of success in that.
I think everybody out there, for those of you who have businesses or are part of groups or seeking new friendships, you need to find yourself a Matt Schultz. And what I mean by that is find that person in your life who can always provide you with that positivity, with that energy, with that enthusiasm, with that strong work ethic, and until you can become that person. And then when you can learn to become like Matt Schultz, go and pour into other people's lives, because we all have the opportunity to make a difference. And that starts with just our energy and what we put off, right? And our enthusiasm. And you've been incredible in that regard. I know you've personally impacted me as the big brother. I look up to you in a lot of ways. And so as you get older, it gets harder, let me tell you.
You just got to keep trucking. Open another energy drink and keep going.
Yeah, you deal with more things in life. But I'm telling you, we all have the opportunity to choose positivity every single day. We all have the opportunity to listen to younger minds or people who are different than us. And I think that we could all learn a lot from people like you. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I've done on several of the most recent episodes is I want to open it up for anybody that you'd like to show some love to. And I know that you've picked out some people who have been influential in your personal life.
Yeah.
Maybe it's celebrities that you follow. Maybe it's people who hunt. Maybe it's just anybody who's impacted you. Show them some love.
Oh, gosh. I got to go for my guy, Luke Roberts. He's a beast. He keeps me going. We're always talking every single day, whether it's about hunting, just shooting the craft, whatever it may be, lifting. Something I value a lot is my weightlifting and my health, and that's something me and him found a lot of common ground on. And, man, he's been a huge, huge impact on me, not only physically and professionally, but spiritually as well. I mean, being surrounded by him and his wife and his little girl, it's been crazy. And, I'd be lying if I said it hasn't changed me since I moved here. So I got to give love to him.
It's awesome, man. It's awesome. You've grown significantly, I feel like, in your spiritual life since moving here. And if Luke had a lot to do with that, I thank him. And for those of you listening, Luke was on the last episode of the podcast, I believe. Right, TG? Last episode? Yeah. Luke was on the last episode, so if you haven't listened to that yet, go back and listen to that. Luke's a great man, and that's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Cool, man. Well, guys, that's all we have today. This is the Tied to the Land podcast. I'm Andrew Schultz. This is Matt Schultz. Matt, where can they find you real quick before we get off of here?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever.
Out in the woods somewhere, doing his thing.
Driving around the interstate, probably driving a little crazy, but.
All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, man.
All right, everybody. That's all we've got on today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And for those of you still listening, we're asking for your support. Recently, a good friend and colleague of ours, Cal Hardy, he lost his brother Brooks in a tragic hunting accident. They've established a foundation in his honor and in his memory. It's called the Brooks Hardy Foundation. The foundation strives to create awareness for hunter safety and for the safety of outdoorsmen. If you guys would, please click on the link in the description. Go support this cause. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much.